Well, you got good ears.
Thank you. It is 7 p.m. Today is Wednesday, April 15th. I'd like to call to order the District of Sechelt regular council meeting. Before we get started, I want to indicate to the public that they can join us on this Zoom platform. You can join by computer or by phone. The public participation process will be the same as if this was a regular face-to-face meeting. Please hold your questions till the end, and then we will automatically bring you in and have you ask your questions. And I'll go over the instructions as to how to do that when we get to the end of the meeting. So we have an agenda in front of us. I understand there's an item to be brought forward for new business. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I'd like to add an item to discuss COVID-19 relief funding, and we can put that under 9.1 new business.
COVID-19 relief funding. Okay, any other additions or deletions on the agenda? So I'd look for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. So first motion on, or first item on the agenda is 5.1. That is the minutes of the regular council meeting of April 1st. Motion to receive and adopt those minutes, moved and seconded. Before we go through with adoption, are there any errors or amendments to be made in there? No errors or amendments. All those in favor of receipt and adoption? Thank you. And then item 5.2, minutes of the regular Sechelt Council meeting of Wednesday, April 8th. Motion to receive and adopt. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing nothing, let's move on to item 7.1. This is the minutes of the parcel tax roll review panel of Wednesday, April 8th. Motion to receive and adopt. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then we'll move on to item 8.1A. This is a rezoning application for the lower portion of lot 12 on Mills Road, West Core Land, zoning amendment bylaw number 25-306. Motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And we'll turn it over to our planner. Over to you.
Thank you. Just get the presentation here. Okay, so in front of you is a rezoning application for a portion of an existing hooked lot along Mills Road. This is the southern portion of the lot, the lower portion of the lot. The entire site is addressed as 5410 Mills Road, but currently we're only dealing with the lower portion here. The lower portion is approximately 2,271 square meters, so just over half an acre. And the rezoning proposal is to rezone from the existing R3 zone to the R1 zone to allow a 4-lot single-family subdivision. The current zoning and OCP designations can be seen here. Predominantly, this area is the R3 zone, which is a typical low-density residential zone. And the OCP designation is residential throughout the entire area. It would be of note that the R3 zone, as it exists currently in this area, is somewhat of a historical holdover in that the especially the Carnaby Place subdivisions would not conform with the existing R3 zoning. Those lots are significantly smaller than what the R3 zone would allow. So it's the R1 zone would be a more appropriate zone for this area, but that hasn't been updated to date. This proposal is consistent with the residential or with the official community plan. The residential designation allows for a wide variety of residential type lot sizes ranging from 300 to 600 square meters. And the current R1 zone would allow for 500 square meter minimum lot sizes. This is located within the urban containment boundary and further located within the priority growth area. Therefore, the location of this subdivision and rezoning would be appropriate for a somewhat more intensive single-family residential type layout. It's not a substantial departure from the existing R3 zone. The uses are virtually the same except for the minimum lot size being 500 square meters rather than 900 square meters. The applicable lot coverage remains the same. Property setbacks are all the same, and the uses are, for the most part, identical. So the R1 zone is overall very similar to the surrounding land uses that exist today. This is a quick overview of the preliminary subdivision proposal that's associated with this application. It would be 4 lots along Mills Road, single family homes, likely with secondary suites. The R1 zone would allow for secondary suites, and frontage improvements along Mills and Bly Road would be required in accordance with subdivision bylaw 430. This is just a photo and an overhead view of the subject site. There are some trees located along the property line, and a tree assessment will be required to see if any of those trees can be maintained. And if they can't, then appropriate replacements will be required. So I have 3 recommendations for you today: that the bylaw be given first reading, and that we undertake the official referral process, and further that we undertake a negotiation with the developer for voluntary amenity contributions. Thank you.
Thank you. So first, council, any questions on the presentation? Councillor Scott.
Just a question, why just this lot specific, or part of the lot specifically that he's looking to subdivide? Why not all of it?
There is an associated application with the central portion of the lot. That's a multifamily residential development that we're still reviewing at the staff level at this time, and that'll be presented to council at a future date.
So townhouses type stuff?
That's right.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor McLean.
Yeah, if we go to page 26 in our agenda, there's a site plan. And it appears that the sewer lines are going to the back of the lot. That seems a bit unconventional to me. Am I correct in understanding that? And if so, why?
These are preliminary engineering proposals received by the applicant's engineer. And once we undertake referrals, our engineering department would review this proposal to ensure that it functions as intended and is in conformance with our subdivision servicing bylaw. It's not uncommon to have infrastructure servicing at the rear of a lot if it's required due to topography. Again, sewer would be gravity drainage, along with stormwater would be dependent on gravity as well. So sometimes, depending on the topography, we would locate services in the rear yard through a statutory right-of-way.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Toth.
So given that the applicant does have an application that is in process for the middle section for potential townhomes, are they going to be likely doing all of their roadworks and improvements all at the same time to maximize their economy of mobilization? Or are they willing to do this little bit here and then a little bit later as they go?
I wouldn't have a good answer for you on that question at this point. Likely the intention would be to do it at the same time if possible, but it would be at their discretion when the works would be undertaken.
Any further questions? All right, so we have some recommendations that have been put before us. Anyone like to, Councillor Scott? What would you like to do?
I'll move recommendation 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so 2 is that council give first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 25-306/2020, and that staff refer the application to relevant stakeholders, agencies, and the Advisory Planning Commission for comment, and that staff negotiate a voluntary community amenity contribution in accordance with the policies contained within the official community plan. So those motions are moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Any further discussion? Although, Councillor Toth, under the wire.
It's not a question so much as a comment. I'm loath to stamp down more single family dwellings, but I recognize that, you know, in this particular case, it is a good fit for the neighborhood. And I look forward to seeing the townhouse proposal come forward at some point.
Thank you. I do note that secondary suites can be put in here. So that might be something that the developer is actually looking at. So even though it's a single family house, if the secondary suite is put in right up front, that's actually a benefit to the homeowner as well. Okay. Any other questions or comments? So we have motions on the floor. All those in favor? Thank you very much. So we'll move to item, it would be the zoning amendment bylaw on page 28. This is District of Sechelt bylaw number 25-306/2020 for West Core Lands, being a bylaw to amend District of Sechelt zoning bylaw number 25/1987. And I'd like to have someone move first reading. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kowitz. So we'll move on to next item in the agenda. Item 8.2A. This is the 2019 to 2023 financial plan amendment bylaw. First, a motion to receive the report. Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt? Thank you. So who is going to speak to this? Mr. Curry.
Thank you, Worship. I can just say a couple of quick words here. On April 1st, 2020, Council gave first, second, and third reading to the 2019 to 2023 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw 581. And now would be the appropriate time to proceed with adoption of the bylaw. And we recommend fourth reading today. Thank you.
Thank you. So I know when this came before us the last time, we had community comments thinking that we were actually moving forward with this year's budget and financial plan. That's not the case. We are looking at adopting, incorporating basically the changes that occurred during 2019 inside of our bylaw to reflect, so that it actually reflects what happened during the year. It takes into account emergency situations that come up, etc. So just to alleviate any community concerns. So there's a motion before us that we proceed with adoption of this financial plan amendment bylaw. Someone like to move that? Moved, seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to the bylaw. It's on page 31, item 8.2B. This is District of Sechelt 2019 to 2023 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 581-1/2020, a bylaw to amend the District of Sechelt 2019 to 2023 financial plan. And I'd look for a motion to adopt. Moved. Is there a seconder? Seconded. All in favor? Thank you very much. So we move on to new business. Councillor McLean.
Thank you. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here, so give me a second. Okay, hopefully you should all see this motion. I've been working with the Central Coast Community Task Force to identify needs from the not-for-profit industry and the community services industry in responding to COVID-19. I think there's a lot of organizations that will be impacted in various ways, from increased services to decreased donations. So what I have in front of us is a proposal to provide funds to the Community Foundation, who has already set up a grant process. They're well known in the community, they're respected in the community, and they will be the ones to administer funding to these not-for-profit organizations. And they can go and they're already set up. They have $50,000 that they have contributed from their reserves. And this proposal is to add up to $50,000 from the District of Sechelt, from the Community Forest Dividend Reserve. So that's the funds that the regular dividends that the Community Forest gives to us, not the extraordinary dividends. And then the final piece is for it to be matching funds. So I think anything that we want to do for the community in response to COVID, it should be a partnership with community members. So the logic of the matching funds is to get more people from the community contributing to this and essentially leverage the funds that we're providing to get even more impact and help the Sunshine Coast recover even sooner.
All right, any questions by council? Councillor Lamb? Sorry, you're muted. I'll unmute you. There you go.
Okay, so the Community Forest Reserve at the District of Sechelt now sits at approximately $98,000. Is that correct?
Mr. Douglas?
I believe it's around the 98,000. I don't have the number in front of me at this point, but it is under 100. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And so we're giving up a portion of that. We're giving up half of that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I got one more.
Okay, Councillor Lamb?
Yeah. So the foundation that's going to that we're going to give this money to, that we possibly will give this money to, what they're putting $50,000 in out of their reserves. What do they have? Is that their whole reserve, or is that part of it, or do they have more money to put in if they need to or not?
Councillor McLean?
Yeah, so I can't speak to their operations. A large majority of the funds that they have are pre-allocated. So essentially, they have endowments that fund a large number of charities on the Sunshine Coast. So I was told it's a large portion. I don't know how much exactly. But the advantage of this is that they can write charitable tax receipts. So if other people donate, then they can contribute and make the impact even further. And that's the intent of this second motion down at the bottom.
That's great. That's awesome.
Okay, Councillor Rowe?
Just want to clarify that they're actually going to be distributing the funds. This isn't being put in an endowment, and it's just the interest that's being distributed, right? Like they're actually distributing the funds they collect?
Yes, this isn't an endowment program. This is direct dispersal.
Okay.
They already have the program up and running. They're ready to provide funds within the week.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I understand they already have the application process set up and have actually advertised already. How do you anticipate the last portion of this working? So that the funds will be matching funds to any new individual or corporate contribution to the Sunshine Coast Community Foundation Fund. So are you anticipating that we make these funds available and the community foundation would solicit other donors in the community? If they put forward funds, we would then match those up to our $50,000 limit. Is that how you see that working?
That's exactly it. So the community foundation would report back to our staff, and then we can cut them a check for that equal amount that other donors give to the community foundation in this COVID response fund.
Councillor Toth.
Ordinarily in these trying times, I'd be really hesitant for us to be handing out this kind of money, but I think that the Community Foundation does really good work, and I think that this is a good way for us to funnel that money. My question is, do we have any oversight or participation in their committee that reviews the applications and determines who to hand out money to?
Councillor McLean.
As of right now, no. That's something that we may be able to approach them with, but this proposal uses their existing process and their existing review committee. of community members and board members from the Community Foundation.
Okay, one other piece that I would like to see, given that this is coming from the dividend that the District of Sechelt gets from the community forest, I would like the community forest also recognized on the funds that go forward here. Because that's where the funds, I mean, personally, I mean, I look to see what council's will is on this, but I would look to see recognition that that's the source of the funds. Councillor Scott?
I agree. We need to recognize the community forest for that, for sure. It's a must.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in on that piece? Councillor Rowe?
Yeah, I would agree. And just a question for Matt. So I have a lot of faith in the Community Foundation. I've had lots of, some life experience with this. So it's not that I doubt, but what if they only raised $10,000? We're only donating them $10,000 then, right?
As written right now, yes.
Yes, okay.
Are they looking at a particular timeline to raise these funds, or is this ongoing? Do we know?
So with everything COVID related, we don't know the timeline.
Nobody knows.
I did consider setting a deadline for these funds to be matched, and I'd welcome suggestions on that. But they are doing ongoing fundraising. They are doing ongoing grants to the community. So right now there's none of that.
I mean, I can see where Councillor Rowe's going with this. If they only raise $30,000, then, we're saying we're willing to give up to 50. Then what do we do with the other 20? At what point do we say, okay, we're going to do this? Councillor Rowe, you unmuted your phone, and then Councillor Toth.
I don't know. I'm on the fence. I totally understand, and the leveraging piece, which I've done before. I'm not sure what the capacity of the community is going to be after this. That's all. And I guess ultimately, if we decide to do this and stay with the matching funds, and a couple months down the road it hasn't worked the way that we thought that it would, can we then decide to just give them whatever is left, up to $50,000? I don't know.
Councillor Toth?
I would be in favor of not putting a timeline on this. We really don't know if this is going to go on for a few more weeks or a few more months, or, heaven forbid, a few more years. And I don't think it would be fair to restrict the time in which this money is available if we've decided we're going to make this money available.
Councillor Kuster?
Yeah, just going back to your first question, I definitely agree that we need to acknowledge the community forest, as that's where the funds were coming from. And I'm kind of feeling the same way Brenda does. I mean, I think if we're allocating that money, I'm hoping that we can put that money to COVID relief, even if we don't get the matching funds in some way. I don't know how that plays out right now, but it's definitely something in the back of my mind. So maybe we can do a little bit more, I don't know, have some more thought about that, or get some more brainstorming happening.
What if we do a modification to this? And I'm just playing with this, so you might need some wordsmithing here. What if we do something like, be it further resolved that we request the Sunshine Coast Community Foundation Response Fund consider using these funds to raise matching funds, so that we don't limit our contribution. but they can go out and say, we have $50,000 that, District Sea Shelton and Community Forest have donated, and we're looking to match that. Councillor McLean.
Yeah, I believe that defeats the purpose of the matching funds.
Mhm.
If we say the funds are guaranteed, but it's matching, so what? So I like the thought, but I don't think it quite works out. For matching funds to work, they need to be conditional.
Okay, so then can we, if we pass this as it is, could we request that staff report back to us at some point to give us an update as to how much of the funds have actually been matched and allocated, so that we can make a decision about the remaining funds at that point? And I'm open to whatever that timeline is.
From my perspective, I think that's a good approach.
Okay. Any other comments? So there's someone who would like to make this recommendation. I believe Councilor McLean would like to make that. Is there a seconder? There's a seconder. All right. Any other further comments on this at this point? Councillor Lamb, you had a comment?
No, I'm comfortable with where we're at.
Okay. So all those in favor of the recommendation on the floor? All right. So then let's add a further recommendation. And Councillor McLean, I don't know how this is going. What if we said we're in April? What if we requested that staff report back to us at the end of July and let us know where we're at that point?
I'd be fine with that timeline.
Okay. So I'll make a recommendation that we request staff provide a report back to council, maybe the last council meeting in July or something, on the funds that have been allocated through this recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay. And Mr. Douglas.
I'm wondering if we could report to the end of July at the first meeting in August,
Sure, that works.
because then you have that end date of July 31st. Or
Okay. Okay. Councillor Toth.
I know it's a little ways out still. When do we anticipate we're not going to be having council meetings this summer? July, August? Are we going to have problems with bringing a report forward to a council meeting that isn't going to be happening because of staff vacations and what have you?
I believe we have the council meeting the first week in August, and then no further are booked at this point for August.
In which case I'm fine with the end of July as well.
Okay. Councillor Lamb.
If the funds have been used up before that, would staff, if it's June 1st, we could get staff to tell us at that time they're all gone, eh?
absolutely, yes.
Mr. Douglas is shaking his head, yes.
Okay.
All right, so the recommendation on the floor that staff report back to us following the end of July, first meeting in August, basically, as to the status of the funds that have been expended. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor McLean, for bringing that forward.
Yep, I think there's just one more motion about recognition to the community forest.
Do we want to make, okay,
Let's just get
go
that
ahead.
right. So that the community foundation recognize the Sunshine Coast Community Forest and the District of Sea Shelton for their contributions.
Okay, seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Perfect. So we'll move on to item 11.1, council reports. So this is how I have this on my screen. So I'm going to read these out and then you can go from there. So let's start with Councillor Rowe, Toth, McLean, Kuster, Lamb, and Scott. So Councillor Rowe, you're first.
I don't have much to report, unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be. Just still super involved at work, and super thankful for the community that we live in. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Kuster.
I was just actually trying to think about the last 2 weeks seem like a whirlwind. I think we all attended via Zoom, or some of us, an elected officials meeting where we all kind of, all the local governments got together via Zoom and just chatted about what's going on in the community with the COVID, and did some brainstorming. And very impressed that there was 2 youths from Gibson's that were bringing forward wanting to start up a youth council, doing that on their own, and trying to get that started so they can bring forward some ideas about what's going on with youth moving forward into the new year. So I thought I was very impressed with that. And other than that, just, yeah, dealing with high school starting up via Zoom, and the sadness of a daughter who might not graduate officially through the normal channels. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
I've been busy with work, so I don't really have anything to report.
And I think I said Lamb next.
Sure.
Goes back and forth across my screen. I don't know if I start from the right or the left. Councillor Lamb.
Sure. Yeah, we've been working with the Water Resource Select Committee, and so there was a consultant chosen for well, back in January, and so we've just actually been trying to get together with her, and hopefully early next week it looks like we'll have our first preliminary meeting with her, just to get things underway. And we've been sending in we sent her some information. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
For me, just also busy with work. It seems my life has changed to hours and hours of conference calls on the federal side and the provincial side. So yeah, it's sometimes it's a bit of a blessing having all these online meetings. It saves the travel, but I do miss the personal interaction too. So looking forward to getting back to normal, whatever that may end up to be.
Well, yeah.
Councillor McLean.
Yeah, first of all, the Housing Committee meeting of April was canceled, so I have nothing to report there. Hopefully we can meet in May, or we will meet in May. Secondly, as a follow-up from the intergovernmental meeting last week, I've had a couple conversations with both our MLA and our MP and their staff, and I just want to put a big shout out to both of them and their staff for really responding and providing great community service. They're going full out and they're willing to help if anyone has any issues. So definitely reach out to both Nicholas Simons and Patrick Weiler. Finally, I've been working with the Sunshine Coast Task Force. They have a website up and running. So that's scctaskforce.com. Lots of good resources on there. Everything from if you want to help out, what do you do if you feel sick, where to get emergency food, what businesses are open. It's just a wealth of resources, and it's all centralized on the Sunshine Coast community. And there's also somebody who will be answering the phone if you want help. So you can do that by calling 1-866-212-5025. And yeah, it's great to see how much has come together. And thanks to the mayor for really kicking that off.
Thank you. Thanks to staff who've stepped in and people like you who have come forward in the community. I want to mention, first of all, I got a haircut. My hairdresser's probably watching this and wondering what happened. So for all of you, I mean, we're all in the same boat, right? We're stuck at home. My hair was getting so long, I couldn't stand it anymore. So I tasked my husband with cutting my hair. He didn't do a bad job, but my hairdresser will fix up what needs to be fixed up once we're done with all this. Eastlink Local Government Show. We had that last week, and earlier in the week, we had talked with the producer of the show and suggested that we try using a Zoom format. So he had to jury rig a couple of things and figure out how to actually do the audio and the video feed through their system. We got it all up and running. So he actually told me after we did the show that he gave me a technical credit for the show because I helped them with the Zoom piece. It worked really well. We had the local government leaders, just as if we were on TV, and we had our conversation with Sean Eckford. So that was broadcast over Eastlink. Week to week, I have to say, continuing meetings with the local government leaders, minimum twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week. Whenever something flares up on the Sunshine Coast here, we'll call a Zoom meeting. We had one this past Monday again with, this one was Chief Paul, Chair Pratt, Mayor Beamish, our MP, our MLA, and their 2 assistants. So looking at, reactions from the weekend, etc. So it's really good. As Councillor McLean mentioned, very responsive, bringing forward information, always willing, like we'll ask questions, somebody in the community brings a question forward and we ask it and they go off and get us answers on various programs. And I'm sure have had some input into some of the recommendations on some of the programs that have changed. There are still pieces that they're indicating will be coming. And another thing that they're indicating in the meetings that we're having with Minister Robinson, because we do those once a week as well, is the province is looking at bringing forward other programs for the community, but they want to find out what the federal government is doing first, and then they'll piggyback on that so that they can actually enhance the programs that the federal government is doing. Also, once a week, we actually have a scheduled call with the MP and the MLA. So what else is happening? I attended the Sunshine Coast Community Forest meeting, their board meeting. They have their 5-year plan now approved, and they are starting to look forward to the cut blocks. So they'll be putting those forward as well to get approved to cut. And they will be announcing, I think it's going to be in the beginning of May, they will have their financial plans in the newspaper, and they'll be having their AGM in about mid-May. So that will be advertised as well at that point. So watch for that. The Self-Employed Women's Network had their AGM, and it was a Zoom format up and down the coast. I think there were about 26 women that joined in, and they had a guest speaker. They had door prizes. They pulled for the door prizes, and then they got dropped off at people's doors. So, they did the physical distancing piece, but it was great to see some of these women. They talked a bit about some of the impacts that they're seeing as well on their businesses, as all are. Thursday of last week, Councillor Toth and I took part in a call with Mark Collins, the CEO of BC Ferries with the regional district. He came to us to find out what some of our concerns were, and we had questions for him as well. Why is BC Ferries doing what they're doing, etc. So it was a good 2-way conversation. It helped inform us and has opened up the lines of communication so that should things go forward where we have questions or the community has questions or concerns, we can approach them and do this very quickly as well. So as Councillor Scott indicated, this format, while does not have us get together, and we do miss that because it is part of, the kind of the, collegial piece that happens. It does make a difference getting together, but not being able to get together. This actually is a format that allows us to have fairly quick meetings with people from different areas. And then this morning, I attended the Downtown Business Association board meeting. They talked about some of the efforts that are coming out of the task force with regards to business support. And there is a lot of business support being put together right now in, it's SCREDO, the Regional Economic Development Organization, Downtown Business Association, the Chambers, and Community Forest, or sorry, Community Futures, not the forest, Community Futures. They're putting together a whole bunch of initiatives to support businesses. Things like, if your store is closed, helping them look at, is it more financially viable to stay closed, or could they open and do some kind of drop-in or delivery model or whatever? What are the financial pieces around that to help them make those decisions? So that's one of the pieces they talked about, but there's a whole bunch of others that will be rolling out within the next couple of weeks and ongoing. They're looking at now and they're looking at future. So kudos to all of them for the work that they're doing. I think that's it. I'm going to turn over to Councillor Toth for his SCRD.
Just before I get into that, I actually had two questions that came up while you were giving your report. The local government show, now that they're doing through Zoom, is it available in any way other than cable TV yet? Do you know?
I don't know. I can ask.
Okay, that was one question. The other question was, do you know the Business Watch program that's being done, is the funding for that coming through the SDBA, or do you know?
No, the funding, I believe, a couple things. One is the District of Sechelt is taking it out of our discretionary funds. I think we're looking at about $3,000 or $4,000 to run the program. It has been put forward, as far as I understand, through the Emergency Operations Center for funding. We don't have approval on that yet, as far as I know, and our CAO could correct me if I'm wrong on that yet. I don't think we've heard back, but it is something that the businesses and the RCMP and everybody feels will be beneficial at this point. It's not looking like it's going to be an ongoing program. It's a program that's there for now. And it starts, I think it's going to be up and operational. They're hoping to have it operational in Sechelt this week.
And that's basically modeled after the Gibsons.
It's
version,
totally
right?
modeled after Gibson's. The only difference that we've done on our end is Gibson's is paying per kilometer. We've actually run the route a few times to figure out what that is. And to cut down on the paperwork, we're actually providing gift cards for the gas money. So, you know, they go out and do their route a few times, put their hours in, and they get a gift card that would cover off their mileage. Easier on both sides for paperwork.
And within our staff, Lucy is the contact point for that?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Regarding the SCRD report, it's all right there. Pretty short, not a lot of meetings to report on, and happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
All right, any questions on the SCRD report? No questions? Let's move on to council correspondence. So first, a motion to receive the council correspondence. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you. And then, here we go. So we have 4 items of correspondence. 3 of them are marked for information and 1 for action. So item number 1, this is with regards to a comment period extension for the naming proposal Wilson Creek. We requested an extension. It was to be in April. It was granted to August. So the question to council is, do we want to wait to go out to the community for input on this, or do we want to turn this over to staff and see if they can come back with some idea as to how we could potentially move forward with something prior to, I don't know, maybe in the next few months? Councilor McLean.
Yeah, I'd love it if the staff could work with representatives from the Sechelt Nation as well and come together and use this as a learning opportunity, as well as to help us make an informed decision. So yes, I'd love to see staff begin that work over the next few months.
Okay, should we make a recommendation to that? Refer this to staff to come back with a proposal as to how to engage with the community along with the Shishalt Nation.
Sounds good to me. I'll either
Okay.
move or second that.
Okay, well, let's move and second it together. How's that?
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Counselor Todd.
I've got one question. Part of this is the renaming of the actual body of water that is Wilson Creek. And part of this is renaming of the community of Wilson Creek. It's never really been made clear that they're looking to rename an area within the district of Sechelt. And if so, does there exist any authority for that to be done? Or is that something that we need to do within our bylaws? Because it's in our OCPs, it's in our zoning, it's in everything we have.
I think that's part of the information that staff will have to come back to us with. We have no idea. I don't have any idea about that. Any other questions or comments? So all those in favor? Thank you. So item number 2, this is the Wharf Avenue Improvement Project. Pages 54, 55. So this was a request by the Downtown Business Association for a letter of, oh no, this is about, sorry, this is about the lane piece. I think I'd like to ask Mr. Allen if he could speak to this one.
Yes, thank you. That'd be fine. This is a in behind Petrocan and Golden City. There is a lane there. It is a District of Sechelt lane. It's used for parking vehicles and so forth. It's not used to drive to get anywhere per se. And now the owners of the properties there's a couple properties where the Golden City is, have suggested they can provide parking stalls. If one of the concerns about the Wharf Avenue street front upgrade would be the loss of parking because we're going from angular to parallel parking, and they've agreed to potentially provide some parking stalls, 19 or 20 spots. As part of that consideration, they would like to consider a lane or road closure application pursuant to the community charter. The portion of road that would potentially be closed is quite small. It's about 135 square meters, or somewhere in the range of 1,100 square feet. Now, under the present zoning, if they were to redevelop and create a 3-story building, then it's 135 times 3. If there's additional potential future value as well, if this were a 6-story building, then you're over 800 square meters of potential floor space ratio. So there is some value. They've also, through SDBA, have identified that part of the trade-off could be through increased building assessment value and development cost charges and so forth. But recognizing that should this go forward, there would need to be likely a property assessment of the land to determine a value and a fair market purchase. There is a procedure through the community charter respecting advertisement and so forth. So my recommendation would be to treat this part and parcel with the Wharf Avenue upgrade. Should ICE-T funding be successful, we could then direct the SDBA and the property owners to formally make an application for road closure, and council can consider the merits as an individual application. Thank you.
Thank you. So what you're recommending is at this point, we take no action and wait until we hear the results of the application for ICE-T funding.
That would be my recommendation. As it's potential, we can still carry forward with this, even if the ICE-T funding does not come through. But it seems as though that application is going in from a sequencing event. It would seem as though let's wait and see what comes from that. And then that will inform next steps on the overall project, including this potential consideration.
All right, any questions by council? Council McLean.
Yeah, I believe the main funding source for the Wharf Avenue project is actually Bike BC, and IST is signified as a secondary source. So we just need some clarity on which grant would make this contingent on.
Okay.
I think the application for IST is just going in. And it's in our, actually in our correspondence here, our referral letter to them. The executive director this morning indicated she has all of the stuff that she's looking for, including this letter. The letter is in here just for information for us. This was actually approved at one of our last meetings. But she has the package. It's going in. The deadline for applications is May 1st. So I know that there is an ICE meeting scheduled for June 10th, I believe it is. So at that point, we will know whether or not, if it's gone to the next step, if it's going forward, where it's at. So this is a few months out at this point yet. All right, next two are received for information. This is on the reduction in service on BC Ferries. And Councillor McLean, did you want to say anything about that, or there's just a letter?
Oh, BC Ferries?
BC Ferries. Yeah, BC Ferries.
Oh, no.
Okay. And the reason I asked Councillor McLean is he's actually on the BC Ferry Advisory Committee. And the last piece of correspondence is the letter of support that was written and provided to the SDBA for that ICE-T grant. So any other emergency items to be brought forward? Nobody's jumping up and down or waving their hands. So I'd look for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Thank you.